My entitled daughter screamed at me and called me an idiot in front of her friends, so I gave her a reality check. My daughter is very entitled, very spoiled and very bratty. She is my daughter and I love her very much, but on many days her sense of entitlement makes me think my wife and I did something seriously wrong when raising her. And I suppose we did. We spoiled her a lot when she was growing up, and never disciplined her when she did anything. When she was 4 or 5, her birthdays were very extravagant and the other kids catered to her every need. If any kid did something she did not like, our daughter would verbally bully the kid, and my wife and I would back her up. Whenever she was mean to us, we excused it every single time. She would yell at us if her gifts weren't exactly how she wanted them, or if my wife made dinner not exactly how she wanted it. We always took the abuse off her, hoping one day she would come around and realize how much we put up with to make her childhood as perfect as possible. We always put her behavior down to just her being a kid, and we thought she would grow out of her spoiled ways. She is now 14 and we realize that she has not grown out of it. She goes to a private school and has all the latest technology, but this is not enough for her. She demanded that for her birthday I get her a car despite her not knowing how to drive, and when I refused she threw a temper tantrum which ended with her screaming so loud the police were called. It was on her birthday that I realized just how large her sense of entitlement was. After the whole police fiasco happened in the morning, she calmed down and an hour later demanded to see her presents. After receiving the MacBook she asked for but not in the correct color, she rolled her eyes and told my wife and I we were useless. My wife then spent a few hours preparing a meal consisting of all of her favorite foods, including homemade sushi. My daughter ended up excusing herself halfway through because she wanted to go FaceTime her friends and show off her new MacBook. We didn't even cut the cake. Later that day my daughter asked me to carpool for her and her 3 friends over to a bowling place, and despite it being kinda late and me having work the next day, I agreed. It was my daughter's birthday after all. It was while I was driving them that my daughter went off on me. She was in the backseat talking with her friends when one of her snobby friends mentioned that her father had got her a Honda for her 14th birthday a few months ago. My daughter, "See Dad, why are you so useless? Kaylee's dad got her a Honda. You can't even get me a correct color laptop." They proceeded to laugh and I grit my teeth, only managing to reply, "That's nice Kaylee, I hope you enjoy it." My daughter then yelled back, "Don't talk to my friends, just drive," and they went back to their conversation. That's when I lost it. I stopped the car and turned around. I proceeded to go on a very loud and angry rant which lasted a few minutes, and the rant consisted of me calling them all entitled spoiled brats, telling my daughter that she is not a girl I'm proud to have raised, that the way she treats us is disgusting and despicable, and that maybe I am useless. I can't even raise a daughter who respects her parents. Maybe that is useless. And since I'm so useless, they don't need me. Hence they can all get the F out of my car. All 4 of them were pale by the end of my rant. I'm ex-military, I know I can be scary when angry. They all got out. Maybe a 2-hour walk from the bowling place and a 2-hour walk from our house. I went home and told my wife about it, who told me that she's not sure what I did was correct, but she doesn't blame me either. Our daughter ended up coming home 3 or so hours later, and she went straight to bed without speaking to us. That was last night, and she hasn't come out of her room all day today. Did I take things too far? Update: my entitled daughter screamed at me and called me an idiot in front of her friends, so I gave her a reality check. My wife and I were able to drag my daughter out of the room to have a conversation with us, but it was not an easy task. My daughter apparently did not want to see me after I humiliated her in front of her friends and her words. It took her staying in the room for 3 days until she was ready to come outside and have a talk with us. Her mother and I started the conversation by telling her that her entitlement has gone too far, and we understand that it is our fault we have made her this way. But there is no way I can ever excuse her shouting at me and calling me names in front of her friends, especially when I'm giving her a lift to bowling on her birthday. My daughter stayed silent and emotionless while her mother and I were talking. When it was her turn to speak she did not show much emotion either. She said that she didn't care. I had no right to humiliate her like that, and she even went on to say that she will be expecting compensation in the form of a doubled weekly allowance to make up for the emotional distress we caused her. I told her this is exactly what I was talking about. This sense of entitlement and victim card, where she expects absolutely everything to be handed to her, and if things do not go her way then everyone will know about it. My daughter was not having it, and even threatened to sue us for negligence due to me dropping her off at a random location. She then stormed upstairs and locked herself into her room once again. My wife and I then made a decision to send her to my parents' house. My parents live on a farm. We informed her of this that same night, and told her that for the rest of summer, 2.5 months, she will be at my parents' house. She will work hard on a farm, earning everything she has. She will have no easy lifestyle and scrolling social media for 6 hours a day. Long gone will be the days of her getting out of bed at 3 p.m. and she will understand what the world is really like. She cried, she screamed and begged, and she promised to act more in line. I think the threat of hard work got to her. Nonetheless, my parents picked her up and drove off with her the next day while she cried. My wife told me this was cruel as my parents were on their way, but I had to tell her that this is the only way. She has forced her hand. It's this kind of attitude that got us to this place. We have to be stricter. I lost interest in a girl after we went to a party together and she left with another guy. Now she won't leave me alone because things didn't work out between them. I've been friends with this girl but I have a crush on her and have been flirting with her for a while. She's flirted back and we text each other often. Nothing really happened between us, but it was clear the signals were there and we were both interested. We went to an outdoor party with a fire a few weeks back, and when we went to the party, we were completely platonic. We flirted a lot at the party to the point people were telling us to just date each other. She held my hand at the fire and kissed my cheek. We were overall just enjoying ourselves. But later in the night, she went off to talk to other people, specifically another dude. I don't think too much of it since we're not in a relationship and it's not really my place to intervene. If she likes me, then I shouldn't be worried. I'm just sitting by myself, scrolling on my phone, when she comes up to me and says she's thinking about leaving for the night. The best part? The dude she was talking to for the rest of the night was going to take her home. I knew right away that she wanted to go home with that guy, and like I said before, if she liked me, I had no reason to worry. But this right here meant she wasn't as interested as I thought she was. I told her she could do whatever she wanted, and she went away with the guy. It's not like I could say no, I don't own her and we were not in a relationship, so she can do as she pleases. The way I saw it, you win some, you lose some. I went home by myself, and didn't hear a thing from her for like 2 weeks, until today when she texted me asking how I'm doing. I knew exactly why she was coming back to me. I heard through the grapevine the day before that she went out with that dude a few times in the last few weeks, but it fizzled out for whatever reason. Now, she thinks I'm still going to give her a chance. After things didn't work out with that guy. I'm nice in my replies, I don't hold a grudge with her or anything, but I've barely thought about her these last few weeks. I've cut my losses and moved on, no hard feelings. She starts going on about how she's lost her chance with me, how she made a mistake with that guy, and if only I had signaled my intentions a bit more she would have gone with me. Thing is, she made a conscious decision to choose that guy over me and she just needs to own it. This wasn't a mistake, she knew exactly what she was doing, and if things had worked out with that guy, she wouldn't be here texting me asking for a second chance. I also said that going somewhere with me and leaving with another guy pretty much obliterates any chance we have of getting together. It was clear where her priorities were, and she had no actual intent of being in a relationship with me. She asked if she could make it up to me and I said no, thanks. I was hoping that would be the end of that, but she hasn't stopped texting me since. She said I let her go, which wasn't exactly true. She chose to leave and I refused to be anyone's second choice. I know, I may have been a bit slow on the uptake with her, but that's the way I've always been, and it takes two to tango. If she had liked me as much as I had liked her, she would have politely declined this guy and we would have continued on our path together. I know if another girl would have made a move on me I would have said, thanks but no thanks, I'm here with someone. To me, it's a case of she was happy with me till she saw someone she liked better, and the rest is history. My friend thinks I'm being too hard on her because we went to the party as just friends. I admit, that was a mistake on my part, but I thought her reciprocating my feelings would have been enough for her to decline another guy's invitation to hook up. She continued on texting me though, asking about my day, how I've been doing, and making a joke that we haven't caught up in a while. I could tell she was trying to have a long conversation with me, like we used to, but it just wasn't happening and she couldn't force a conversation out of me. I figured since she was still contacting me, I would ask her something I kept thinking about, and I felt like I was owed an explanation. I asked her why she came up to me to tell me she was leaving with someone else. Was she trying to embarrass me? Trying to hurt me? Or was it a ploy to try and make me fight for her? She said she knew that I liked her, but wasn't sure if it was going to go somewhere, or that I cared enough. So, when she hit it off with the other dude, she didn't think I would be bothered if he took her home. She said it was a win-win, either I professed my feelings for her and we could go from there or she could see what happened with him. She said she regretted it with him almost from the get-go, as they didn't have much in common or seemed compatible. She also wanted to get in touch but felt embarrassed. I thanked her for her apparent honesty then blocked her.
My entitled parents told my golden child sister that she could take my adoptive daughter because I'm not her real mother. My younger sister was constantly going out with her friends to drink, use substances, and go to strangers' parties when she was only a teenager. She ended up getting pregnant at 18 by some guy she met at one of those parties. Our parents are really against abortion because they think it's a sin to unalive a clump of cells, so they forced my sister to carry the baby to term. She gave birth to the baby and she did not want the child. She was adamant about putting it up for adoption, which my parents refused. I swear I heard her say she was going to leave the baby at a random doorstep because she wanted to get rid of the baby that badly. She didn't even want to pick up the child, would leave her sitting in her own filth, and wouldn't feed her. Despite never wanting children myself either, I stepped in and adopted my newborn niece as my daughter. I thought I was doing the right thing because the baby would only grow up to be abused or neglected if my sister continued to raise her. My sister of course didn't stop me and was more than eager to give her baby away, but my boyfriend of 3 years gave me an ultimatum when I told him about my decision. He didn't want children either, so he made me choose between him or her. It was a no-brainer, and the fact I was a single mother hit me deeply. It was really tough being a single parent and barely being able to make ends meet. Finding a babysitter was hard, managing my last year of college and working part-time made me miserable, and waking up in the middle of the night to a screaming baby was not how I pictured my early 20s. But I persevered and things have been looking up for us. When my daughter was 5, I told her that she was adopted, and despite me considering her my daughter, she was technically my niece. This didn't mean that I loved her any less and I would always be her mom. She took the news really well and it never felt like anything was missing. Just a year later, my sister stopped her wild ways and wanted to have access to her. I allowed it but stressed she would just be an aunt to her. It wasn't with any malicious intent, I just didn't think she deserved to be considered a mom when she didn't even want her in the first place. Even though she accepted it, it's clear she struggled with the concept and sometimes acted more like a mother, which I always squashed quickly. Now, my daughter is 8 and I've been offered a job in a different country. The pay is almost double my current salary and the company is helping us find a home, putting my daughter in an international school and after-school care. I would be a fool not to take the promotion, and I told my parents to celebrate the wonderful news. But they weren't happy with it at all. They had a meltdown about how I can't do this, it's cruel to take my daughter away from her family, and it's not fair to my sister. My sister has told me she won't allow me to move away with her and that she'll fight in court to get my daughter back. I thought that was completely uncalled for because I had done all the hard parts. I had raised her properly and made sure she got the love she was entitled to. It was obvious that my sister only wanted her because now the hard part was over with and my daughter was a wonderful, mannered little girl. I've talked to lawyers and it seems she doesn't have a leg to stand on as my daughter is legally my daughter, but the rest of my family is telling me I'm being extremely cruel and if I cared about my sister I'd turn this job down. I have sacrificed and suffered so much because of my family, long before my daughter was born. I left home at 16 and finished my education, meanwhile my sister is the golden child who gets away with everything. She even lives with our parents rent-free and doesn't work. As for my daughter, she is excited to be moving and has no solid opinion on my sister. They don't have any sort of bond and I know she wouldn't exactly be sad about leaving my sister behind. I feel like my family is angling for me to eventually just hand my daughter back over as if I was just a temporary filler for my sister, which will obviously never happen and my lawyers are involved in this matter. My disgusting stepdad raised me since I was a baby. Now he's begging that I sleep with him because my mom is pregnant and can't satisfy him. My mom had me fresh out of high school and my dad died at 19. My mom got married to my stepdad at 21 and had my 4 sisters. My stepdad was the only father I knew. He has been a great father, always taking care of me and being a good person to talk to. He was a great dad to me up until I turned 19. I remember he became a little more touchy than normal, and invaded my personal space really often. He would offer me wine and ask about my intimacy life after he drank too much. It was definitely weird to me, but I brushed it off as him being nosy and wanting to make sure his daughter wasn't having intimacy. I see how dumb that sounds, but I never pictured my dad to be someone really awful, and I was just making excuses for him so that I wouldn't see him for what he truly was, a pervert. Since I never called him out on it, though I doubt we would stop even if I did, this kind of stuff just continued. He would make comments about my body, saying I was growing in all the right places, touching my thigh, and he even tried to kiss me last year. I told my mom and she was quick to laugh in my face. She excused his actions by saying, "That's how he gets after too many drinks." I knew that wasn't normal though, and no dad should try to kiss their daughter. I knew then I had to make plans to leave, so I started saving up. Luckily, things were starting to die down a bit and I realized it was because he was getting busy with my mom. She got pregnant at 39. It's a higher risk pregnancy so she's on a lot of bed rest, and taking extra care of herself for her doctor. A couple of weeks ago, my mom and stepdad sat me down, and told me her doctor said she should avoid sex during her pregnancy due to various health reasons. I wish I would have stood up and walked away at that point because I'll never forget what she asked me to do. She wanted me to have intimacy with my stepdad until she was able to have intimacy again. I almost threw up. I obviously said no and just started crying on the spot. I couldn't believe my mom would ever want me to do that, and it's worse because I know it wasn't her idea. My stepdad was using my mom's high-risk pregnancy to finally get his way with me. And my mom just handed me to him on a silver platter. She told me to stop crying because she was okay with it and she'd be in the room as well, so I shouldn't worry about it. I told her that's not why I'm crying and she's disgusting for being okay with this. I called her a horrible mom and said I hated her. I'm so grateful I didn't miss any signs because I have enough money for an apartment and I'm signing my lease next week. I can't even begin to think what would have happened if I didn't prepare for something like this. My parents have gone on to ignore me, which is exactly what I need right now. I wouldn't be able to handle another sit down with them and the days are quickly passing by until I get out of this hellhole. Honestly, my main concern is my younger sisters. I'm terrified that if it wasn't me who will sleep with my stepdad, it'll be them. They're all asking me what's going on but my mom told me not to say anything. I don't want to tell them just because that's their actual dad and I have no idea how they would handle the whole thing. But again, there's the concern with this house being full of girls he can just prey on. If I had to tell someone first, it would be an adult, so I called my aunt and told her what happened to me. She barged in just a day later with 3 other people, one of them a social worker friend of hers, and my uncle. My stepdad found out they were at the house and called the police, but before they even showed up, I told my 16-year-old sister and the 14-year-olds what happened. The 16-year-old got angry at her dad. She was walking around the house ranting at her dad and crying. She decided to come with my aunt. And I just to be safe, and we would figure out where she could go from then on. However, the 2 14-year-olds did not believe me, and they actually started laughing. Then, they got angry that I was trying to destroy our family and how could you make up a sick lie. They claimed that because my dad was dead, I was now trying to get rid of their dad, by sending him to jail. I was hurt that they didn't believe me, but still concerned for their safety. They didn't care about what I had to say and it got to the point where they threw my and my 16-year sister's stuff out the window. By the time the cops came, my aunt, uncle, and social worker were told they had to leave the property. The social worker friend let the cops know everything that's been going on, but they didn't care. They were just there about the noise and trespassers. My sister and I left with them. Later, the 14-year-olds came to their senses and called my grandparents to tell them what happened. They actually asked their dad if what I said was true, and he didn't deny anything. In fact, he called me a WHRE and said I should have had any problems doing what he asked. That's when they packed a bag and called my grandparents. My grandparents explained everything to our youngest sister and she told my grandpa she prefers him to our dad because grandpa doesn't yell at her. I hope that's enough to keep the girls at my grandparents for good. My 16-year-old sister is going to emancipate herself and stay with either our grandparents or our aunt. My grandparents called CPS, and because I have multiple screenshots of my mom incriminating herself, we will be able to file charges and hopefully get my stepdad on the intimacy offender registry. That way the girls can stay with their grandparents permanently.